Welcome to this special program commemorating the humanitarian efforts and the anniversary of Kuwait. Today we gather to celebrate the remarkable contributions of Kuwait as a center for humanitarian work, a nation that has consistently extended its helping hand to those in need. Join us as we delve into the inspiring stories of compassion, resilience and generosity that have shaped Kuwait's legacy as a beacon of hope and compassion in the world.
Kuwait traditionally and over time has proven to be a great actor internationally in the field of international aid for humanitarian and development sake. It has always been in the forefront whenever there is a crisis, both in the region and outside the region. So very recently we have the example from the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, where the Kuwaiti government and the public were very prompt in their very generous contributions, which provided key support to the affected population. And this is not the only example. Over the years, there have been a number of such occasions, and it is not restricted now to the Arab region, the neighboring countries, Africa, but even beyond that. So Kuwait has, the leadership has been very generous in contributing to crises in Ukraine, in Bangladesh, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and other countries. The list is long, and there has been rich tradition according to the traditional values of Kuwaiti culture and Kuwaiti population. Also, it has assisted the UN team in Kuwait, which consists of a number of agencies, through its support to help them work outside the borders of the country in situations which require humanitarian assistance. So in Yemen, in Syria, in Lebanon, there have been a number of such occasions. Wherever there is a refugee crisis, wherever there is an issue with migrants, Kuwait comes forward with its leadership and its assistance. And not only has it provided humanitarian assistance, but it also plays a key role in negotiating the crisis in many countries, and we have documented evidence of that. It provides that leadership at international level to convene various forums to discuss and sort out various conflict situations. We have very recently seen in many such situations. Kuwait has hosted a number of international conferences, like in 2018, then in 2020, about Yemen, Palestine, and Iraq. So all these instances very strongly indicate that Kuwait is at forefront in any humanitarian crisis in the region and outside the region. And the UN community and the global community is very thankful and appreciative of this role of Kuwait.
The commemoration of the passing of Sheikh Sabah is for us an opportunity to celebrate the power of community, to think of the men and women who have helped other men and women around the world in crises that were on the spotlight, such as Ukraine and other crises, but also crises that are not on the spotlight, that are pretty much forgotten, such as the Central African Republic, South Sudan, DRC, and the ICRC, thanks to the support of the state of Kuwait, have been steadfast in supporting people who are suffering from the consequences of war around the world, and this support has been quite significant, and it's something that we don't take for granted. As we speak, we are members of the international humanitarian community, And we are millions of men and women who are providing health care to people in need, who are providing education in crisis zone, who are providing shelter, visiting prisoners, helping families connect with each other. And all this that we do, be it in the region, in the Middle East, or around the world in Africa and beyond, it's greatly thanks to the strong support that we receive from the state of Kuwait.
Well, we all know, and it's no secret to own, it's a clear crystal fact that Kuwait is a known promoter for peace and prosperity, and it has always and continues to play a broker role in promoting these principles. Kuwait, the sense of philanthropy in the Kuwait and the Kuwaitis. So when I speak of Kuwait, I speak of government, but when I speak of Kuwaitis, I speak of the people. It is something that is deep-rooted, not since 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 years. It goes back to different centuries, to decades ago. Therefore, what we value about the Kuwait role in the humanitarian giving is that it is driven out of a true sense or uprooted sense of philanthropy by Kuwait and the Kuwaitis, and it's free from any political agenda. It is just out of the true giving for the cause of refugees. Now, we don't need to say the word refugee twice to call Kuwaitis to help and support in the crisis. The situation of refugees is known to Kuwaitis, and the situation of why you have to leave your country is known to Kuwaitis. And that by itself, on its own, it's enough for them to support. It supports refugees in the region as well as globally, so it doesn't go around certain borders. And this is why our work as UNHCR in Kuwait and the exercise of our mandate and doing our job in Kuwait, it's been very smooth and easy because Kuwait and Kuwaitis know what does it mean to be a refugee.
Considering the rich history of Kuwait in humanitarian and development assistance and the national targets in National Development Plan, there are key initiatives for the future to strengthen and consolidate the leadership of Kuwait in international humanitarian and development assistance spectrum. So there is it is envisaged in the national plans that a center of excellence for international development and humanitarian aid would be established in Kuwait in times to come, which would provide that required leadership and capacity building, not only for Kuwait, but for other countries, organizations, and stakeholders around the world to take this forward in a more scientific, evidence-based, and in a coherent manner.
The ICRC and the state of Kuwait are bound by a very strong partnership that has lasted now for more than 3 decades. Over the years, it has grown, it has really strengthened, and it has been a great motivation for us as we work both in Niamey but also around the world. Kuwait has been supporter of the ICRC and of the humanitarian community. I can think of in Myanmar, people affected by the crisis. I can think of Syria. I can think of the recent earthquake in Syria, but also in Yemen and many other crises where our work was necessary and our work was possible thanks to the support of Kuwait. And we work with the Kuwaiti Red Crescent Society as well, which is a well-respected organization within our movement, an organization that has taken a lot of leadership role Dr. Hilal, my friend Dr. Hilal, is a member of our standing committee of the movement, and Ms. Mahar is the vice president of the International Federation of the Red Cross and Red Crescents. That goes to show the leadership of Kuwaiti Red Crescent, which is quite appreciated in the humanitarian world. But I think if you want to measure the real success of Kuwait as it supports humanitarian work, you can think of the amount of money that Kuwait has provided, which we appreciate so much, but we see it in the eyes of the mother who finally can feed her children. We see that in the smile of a child who can now return to school after her school was destroyed and now rebuilt. We see that in the sight of relief from an elderly who now has been cared for. So those of us who work in the field and who provide the needed support to people affected, we know that the support of Kuwait is well spent and it reaches where it is much needed.
Decades ago, starting from the Palestinian cause, and we know each and every single Kuwaiti child and grown-up, they contributed to supporting Palestinian refugees. But Kuwait support goes on different layers and dimensions. So we speak of the crisis, a fresh crisis. So we speak of what we call life-saving support, like the earthquake. The recent example is the earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Kuwait is one of the most generous and top donors and first responders through the in-kind, what Kuwaitis themselves, through their NGOs, society, they did through airlifting of in-kind assistance, but also through financial assistance to support people in Turkey and Syria. Also, Kuwait focuses not only on the immediate assistance, because this is a life-saving, but it also focuses on the longer-term sustainable development and support, so that the roots of the program is supported through a lot of projects that aims into sustainable development, infrastructure support, water support, education support, through our partners like Kuwait Fund and Arab Fund. Also the private sector, because we cannot forget the important private sector, the long, historical, well-seasoned private sector that Kuwait has. So we also, through the private sector, benefit also from the same support of life-saving, like an immediate support, and also a longer-term one. Through different charities, through a Sadu House, a Cat House, through Red Crescent, and a lot of other charity. If I start name one, I have to name all, but the charity organizations and the private individuals and corporates, of course. We have just concluded a regional mission with the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, with participation of Kuwait from private sector and public sector. It was also another orientation mission of the situation of Rohingya in Bangladesh. We have a very important forum that is coming in December, the Global Refugee Forum. Kuwait has and continues to be a good support for that forum. We hope that our expectations of Kuwait is always high, and there will be participation at a good level, and to translate all these good initiatives that we spoke, and we only spoke of little because of the time, into a clear pledges that Kuwait is already honoring, not even, it's already honoring. So we're having these upcoming events. It's a global event. It will be attended by heads of the states, prime ministers and foreign ministers. So we are hoping, we're working very closely with the Kuwait to have a good level participation at private sector and government. Also, we're having a nice, because we care of promoting the refugee, not only negatively, but also in a positive way, through positive initiatives. So we have brushes of hope. Very creative, the person who made this name. So we'll have a number of Kuwaiti artists. They will participate with their paintings and drawings to support the cause of refugees, and it will hopefully go to honor supporting refugees in most likely this situation of Syrian refugees in the region.
Youth is an asset for any country, for any initiative. They bring in a unique energy, innovativeness, and a fresh look on different issues. So it's very important and critical to involve youth in any initiative, and particularly so in humanitarian and development aspect. So there are a number of ways in which youth can be involved, starting from a creation of awareness among the youth about what humanitarian assistance is, what is the background, what is the philosophy, and how it can be strengthened. Also, it is important to foster partnerships and develop such fora on which youth can be engaged, for youth institutions can be engaged, like universities, like civil society organizations, from which they can learn and contribute. We would also suggest that there should be, in the universities and colleges, there should be awareness sessions and specific contributions towards making them more aware of what is development aid and what are different crises around the world, how do they evolve, how does the contribution from countries like Kuwait help in mitigating them. So all these are multiple facets in which youth can be mentored and their leadership can be provided for this purpose.
People, they see the support that Kuwait gives in relieving human suffering whenever it happens. But there is another work of Kuwait that is perhaps not as known. It's the diplomatic leadership of Kuwait when it comes to the great forums of the world, be it the UN or other forums, where the questions of upholding human dignity comes at play. Kuwait has been a strong voice of humanity over the years. And this has been really crystallized in 2009 with the signing of the UN resolution on the missing, something that Kuwait has really spearheaded and has managed to secure the support of the humanitarian, of the international community. But beyond that, wherever the plight of human dignity is at stake, Kuwait puts its diplomatic and political might really at play to support the thawing people around the world, and this is much appreciated.
Well, with all, I mean, it's a one strategy with all. First of all, it's not a very difficult job to reach to the Kuwaitis and to advocate for refugees, as I said, for the Kuwaitis. And we are not new to the Kuwaitis. We've been on 32 years of partnership together. So what we do is just, and as I said, Kuwaitis are well aware about the subject, but what we do is to, as the crisis is ongoing, there is always a new crisis. Look into the past 2 to 3 years. We've been faced after COVID with the crisis in Afghanistan, then with the crisis in Ukraine, then with the crisis in Turkey, Syria, then with the crisis in Sudan and Niger, and it's ongoing. The collaboration is just by working closely to update on the new situations through regular briefings, through high-level visits, because Kuwait is an important strategic partner, not only for financial aid, but in all levels of partnership. So in less than 1 year, we've got the top 2 leaders of UNHCR visiting Kuwait, the High Commissioner back in November, and the Deputy High Commissioner, where she marked World Refugee Day here in Kuwait. It also goes through engagement with the Kuwait and the Kuwaiti partners through regular field missions. We went to Iraq, we went to Bangladesh to show them the impact of their projects on the Kuwaiti, and other forms of just ongoing engagement with our partners. And this is the way we collaborate, joint events, a lot of capacity building, exchange of information. This is the way we keep engaging and updating of the new situations where the number of displaced people has exceeded 1.3 million, and it's fast growing with a lot of new crises emerging.
When you mention the war, the hearts and our minds and our thoughts goes to the families of Kuwaitis who have lost their loved ones during the crisis. And the ICRC works night and day here in Kuwait and in Iraq, where we support the Iraqis to strengthen their forensic capacities to look for the missing. And we meet regularly with the Kuwaitis, with the Americans, the British, the Saudis, and the Iraqis themselves. We are busy with teams in Iraq and not letting any stone unturned to find the missing Kuwaitis and to bring them home safely. This is something that is very important to us, and I want to reassure people that for the ICRC we stand very firmly by the sides of the families of the missing Kuwaitis, and we will do whatever necessary for them to find answer to their loved ones. This is an opportunity for me, as we celebrate this amazing Emir of Kuwait, to also thank the current Emir, Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jabir Al-Sabah, for his humanitarian leadership. To thank also the people of Kuwait. I think we don't do that enough, but I wanted to really use this opportunity to thank the people of Kuwait. People, when they think of Kuwait, they think of a very small country, and it is very small. They think of a very small population, and the population indeed is very small. But Kuwait is also a great nation, despite being a very small. And the support that we get from Kuwait really epitomizes what Kuwait stands for. And it has enabled us, International Red Cross, and other humanitarian actors to become really beacons of hope around the world, to be the hands that have been healing, to be the shield that has been protecting, and really to be the one that stands by the side of those affected by war and armed conflicts around the world. So thank you, people of Kuwait. Thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Their staff are always working with us, be it here in Kuwait, in New York, in Geneva, but also around the world where there are crises. And we can count on them always to make sure that the voice of those who have no voice is heard, that the support that is needed to alleviate human suffering is provided by Kuwait or mobilized by Kuwait. And we will continue to be a strong partner of Kuwait in the plight for humanity.
Like in all other sectors, Kuwait is also playing a leading role in working and collaborating with many international organizations, including World Health Organization. Wherever there is a health crisis, may it be a natural disaster, may it be a man-made conflict, or climate impact of climate change, Kuwait has come forward with this collaboration. And the very recent example was the pandemic, in which Kuwait not only contributed to the regional countries, but also globally to help mitigate those effects. The World Health Organization is also working both at the regional and global level with the government of Kuwait in providing assistance to those populations which need health in emergencies, like in Syria, in Yemen, in Turkey, and so many other places where the contributions made by Kuwait have affected the key areas like emergency treatments after an earthquake, like the mental health support. They have been providing the essential medicines required in that critical time immediately after the disaster. So all these contributions and this collaboration by working jointly with the government of Kuwait and World Health Organization have been made possible, and I can assure you millions of lives have been saved directly by these collaborations and contributions.
A recent example is our joint mission with Kuwait Fund to look into the project which was launched by Kuwait in support of the Syrian refugees in Kurdistan region, as well as the host communities in that region who was severely impacted by the implications of COVID. They saw on the ground how their infrastructure support, it's a multi-purpose project that supported provision of water, provision of health, provision of registration and documentation, provision of clean medical equipment. It's a multi-purpose project that aims at increase the resilience of Syrian refugees in two locations, in Sulaimaniya and Erbil, but also benefiting host communities in the surrounding. It benefited, just to speak of refugees, around 200,000, let alone the communities who live around them, who benefited from the water supply, from the ecosystem, solar waters, from lighting projects. As well as last year, we went with the private sector partners, the several charity organizations to Bangladesh, where the Kuwait Bijanibikum campaign, Kuwait is on your side, by your side campaign, has benefited the most challenging and urgent situation of the Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, almost 1 million. The impact of Kuwait was very clear in multi-purpose support of education, livelihood, shelter, CRIs, name it, core relief items. So the impact of the Kuwait support is well known in the region, in Yemen, in Iraq, in the Syria situation. It benefited all in all with government funding in the past 5 years around 8 million beneficiaries. Only government, let alone the private sector, which has reached with its support to almost more than 500,000 beneficiaries. So its impact is, yes, in the neighboring countries, but it also goes beyond that.
As we conclude this heartfelt episode, let us carry forward the spirit of compassion and humanitarianism that defines Kuwait's remarkable journey. May the memory of this anniversary inspire us to stand together, united in our efforts to make a positive impact in the lives of those less fortunate. Together, we can continue the legacy of kindness, turning challenges into opportunities and making the world a better place for all. Thank you for joining us in the celebration of humanity. And until we meet again, let's remember that every act of kindness can change the world.